Hello and welcome. My name is Luis Flores, and I'm the Executive Vice President of SCAN, and here in Laredo, Texas, where we are based out of. And with me is San Juanita Guerra. And would you like to introduce yourself to
Of course, thank you, Mr. Flores. Again, my name is San Juanita Guerra, and I work for SCAN, but specifically for a very special project known as Border Project Launch. And I serve as an infant and early childhood mental health consultant, as well as a parent educator and counselor.
Yeah, and we're really excited to have San Juanita in this great program. Just want to tell you a little bit about SCAN and all the programs that we have, and how difficult it is for us to tell people what we do, because we have a lot of different programs. So it's kind of, the configuration of our agency is kind of complex, because we serve adults, we serve children, we do a lot of substance use disorder treatment, mental health crisis. We do a bunch of different services. So what we're going to do in this podcast is to introduce you one program at a time, and this is a really exciting program that San Juanita just mentioned, the program Launch, and it's funded by a federal grant that we have. Would you tell us a little bit about the program?
Absolutely. So, Border Project Launch is a launch project funded by SAMHSA. And so, as part of our mission and our goal is to serve families with children under the age of 8 who are experiencing challenging behaviors. And of course, our goal is to foster good mental health amongst young children. So we love working with our little ones as well as their caregivers, caregivers of all types. We have biological parents, foster parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Every family is different and unique. And then, of course, working collaboratively also with educators and other community partners to be able to provide those services, to identify the children and obviously bring them into our center and be able to provide them with the services that they and their caregivers need to be able to have, good family relationships and bonding. And of course, for the future of the children and for them to have a positive outlook and likelihood of success.
Yeah. And I think that's what we want to make sure, that we foster the healthy development of the children and the families, especially when we begin really early, correct?
Yes, that is obviously the goal here, that the earlier that we are able to intervene and provide such interventions and services, the better of the possibilities of, for the child's upbringing, for the child's development, and of course their success, whether it's socially, academically, and of course within the relationships in the family.
Isn't it interesting that the things that you do as a baby or as a toddler can have an impact later on self-esteem, ability to learn, a healthy self-concept, be able to focus their attention. There's a lot of different things. Getting along with others.
Yes, we talk a lot about cooperation, and so teaching young children, something so fundamental as collaborative play, right? And cooperative play is something that's going to carry on with them for the rest of their lives, as they continue to grow and develop and engage with their peers and, having to cooperate in different scenarios. So, from something as basic as teaching young children to share and take turns.
Exactly.
And of course, like you mentioned, their own self-concept, their self-esteem, their confidence, their sense of belongingness in the home, so vital to their development and their progress throughout life.
Excellent. And we want to tell parents that you are the primary instrument for your kids' healthy development, that the more that you interact with them, the more that you play with them, the more that you respond empathically to what's going on with them, the better the outcomes later on in life. So people shouldn't wait, right? They should do things immediately with their kids right away.
Yes. So that's something that and we hear that from parents, right? Oh, I didn't know if to come and get help yet. People have told me that it's a phase, that it'll pass, that they'll outgrow it. And in our experience, typically things don't outgrow, things snowball into greater things. And so we always tell parents, don't hesitate. If you see something, if you suspect it, listen to your intuition as caregivers, right? Listen to your gut and reach out and get help. If it's nothing, at least you checked it out, you ruled it out. We have ways to assess the child, to screen, and then you can have that peace of mind that, it was something very mild. But what if it's not, right? And so you want to be able to identify that, to target that, to treat that, to intervene as early as possible.
And even I'm imagining, even when they don't see any problems with their kids, they can still come to the program because they can make things even better, correct?
Yes, obviously, we can prevent things from happening. So one of the ways that we do that is through our parenting education sessions, right? We have two curriculums that we use for positive parenting. And so if they are able to prevent things in terms of how they are, disciplining their children and raising their children, even better, right? Why have to deal with anything later on if you can prevent it?
Exactly. And I guess when we have children, when we become parents, we think that the way our parents did it is the correct way, and we don't know that there's a lot of science behind parenting, and there are a lot of skills that people don't pick up automatically. So it is important, even though they think that things are going well with the child, there are many things that they can learn from positive parenting and the other, parenting program that you run, the Triple P, correct?
Yes, Triple P. So that stands for Positive Parenting Program, evidence-based, years and years of research behind it. And so one thing that I always encounter with parents in these sessions is their amazement of how, they're learning, they're listening to the techniques and to the skills, but, just their amazement of like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Or, oh my goodness, we talk a lot about what's called parent traps in these classes. And so I call them the don'ts of parenting, And so, and usually they're well-intended. They're well-intended.
Exactly.
Parents are trying their best.
I think so.
And so, but sometimes we're doing things that are counterproductive. And so it's incredible how eye-opening that experience can be.
And we're not born with these skills. These skills we develop. There was one psychologist, I think I don't know if I'm going to mess up the name. I think the last name is Gino, and he said that all parents love their kids, but it's not love that they're lacking, it's skill. So then sometimes we need to learn these skills with these children, right?
Yeah, I mean, how wonderful would it be if for each child they give us a manual. This is how you raise this one, right? But that's not the case, right? So, and before we are parents, we're human. And so we have our own experiences, we have our own histories, our own traumas in many cases, and our own, what we know. And what we know is how we were raised. And in many cases, that turned out great. And in many cases, maybe it wasn't the best way, but that's what we know. So having the accessibility to programs like ours, where they can learn these skills, these techniques, or simply have that moment to kind of sit back and reflect and say, maybe there's some things I need to tweak here in my parenting that could be way more impactful and way more effective in the way I'm raising my children.
Yeah. And I know that you told me, maybe it's okay to say this, that you learn a lot because you're a young mother.
Yes.
And so then you applied a lot of what you learned.
Yes, it's definitely been beneficial. I'm not going to lie. Both being trained in these things, but actually applying them myself with my own daughter. I have a toddler, and so you know what they say. The terrible twos, the terrible threes. I think there's no such thing. It's really they're just children are going to challenge us. Children are trying to communicate with us, and sometimes they don't know how, and so we see aggressive behaviors and tantrums and things like that. But it's really in how we, the adults, respond to the child, right? That marks all of the difference. And so I've learned a lot, and I know that these techniques work because I've applied them to my own daughter, and I see the results. And so it's very, very satisfying, and it brings me, as a parent, a lot of peace of mind, that I can do this, I can handle this. And there's very simple ways to approach situations especially with young children.
And I was thinking, like, sometimes parents get discouraged when they see temper tantrums, and they don't understand that these are great opportunities to teach children self-regulation, right? Sometimes temper tantrums are normal, but we help kids with our using ourselves, so then they can regulate their own feelings. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, I'm so glad you bring up that, because it's one of the most common complaints we get from parents. He throws himself on the floor, or she does this, and it's a tantrum, right? And unfortunately, they get mislabeled. They're spoiled. They're rotten. They're this. They're and so, but really, it's the child trying to communicate something. So unless we have that self-awareness of, okay, let me take a step back. What is my child trying to communicate to me right now? And how do I best respond in this moment? To acknowledge the child's feelings, but at the same time, not provoke or increase the undesired behavior, right? So there is a strategy to that. There is a technique to that.
And I think really essential is that parents remain calm, because the kid is throwing a temper tantrum, and they have the tendency to get angry
Upset,
themselves or upset, and that escalates actually the temper
Yeah,
tantrum, right? So then,
yeah.
how important it is for
Yeah.
parents to do that, what you're mentioning,
Yeah.
when they're calm
To
and
keep
regulated.
calm. Yeah, and it's so hard. I can definitely empathize with parents. It's just so hard. I mean, we're only human, so we see the child upset, we naturally get upset, and typically that frustration that we feel, which then presents itself in anger and we raise our voice and stuff, it's really a feeling of helplessness, because most parents, we don't know what to do,
Yeah,
right? Because we're
exactly.
doing what we think we know, which is trying to calm the child and, why are you crying, and please stop crying and stop that. But it's not working. So immediately the sense of helplessness comes over us, and that is a really unpleasant place to be as a
Sure.
parent, because as a parent, you just, again, you love your kids and you just want to do what's best. And so feeling helpless in those moments is so overwhelming, and you feel so defeated as a parent.
And like you said, there's always good intentions behind what parents do with their children, but sometimes it's counterproductive. And talking about temper tantrums in kids that sometimes have difficulty with emotions and regulating their behaviors, because they're impulsive. So can you tell us a little bit about what kind of therapies you guys use to help those kids? Because we know if we don't address those issues, these kids are going to develop other problems later on in life, right?
Absolutely. So we do have this amazing intervention therapy within our program. We call it PCIT, but it stands for Parent-Child Interaction Therapy.
Okay.
We have 3 full-time counselors that are trained in this. 2 of them are internationally certified by PCIT. If you go to the PCIT International website, you'll see their names on there.
And
I'm
trained on
trained.
it,
I'm
yeah.
trained in it and working towards certification. So is one of our other
Great.
counselors. So we have fully trained folks doing this. And the beauty of this therapy is that it involves both caregiver and child. We always tell the caregivers, this is about you and your relationship with your child. You're not going to bring the child in and we'll do therapy with the child. There's therapies like that. But this one is about the connection between the two, right? And so basically, caregiver and child comes into our facility. We have what we call playrooms designed for this type of therapy, and they play with their child. But there's, an agenda behind that,
Yeah.
right? And so the therapist, through a bug in the ear, is guiding the caregiver in terms of how to respond to the child.
So the therapists are in a different room.
Yes, the therapist is watching from a camera in a
camera.
different room. Because again, this is not about building a working relationship between the therapist, the caregiver, and the child. This is about the caregiver and the child,
Yeah.
right? The counselor, the therapist is there as a form of coach who is guiding the caregiver to develop and master these specific skills. We call them pride skills, right? And
yeah.
pride stands for praising the child, reflecting what the child is saying. So basically repeating what the child is saying, which goes back to things like reflective listening,
Paraphrasing.
Imitating what the child is doing. So really engaging in that play, right? A lot of us say, I play with my kid every day, but are you really playing with your child? Or are you just sitting there supervising, making sure that they don't get into any trouble? Really engaging. And then the D is for description, really describing, kind of like doing a play-by-play with the child, being that sportscaster in the moment. And then the E is that you enjoy this special time with your child. And so the caregivers are taught to master these skills so that they can do this at home without the guidance of the therapist. And once they conclude their therapy, that they're able to do it from there on with full confidence that as a caregiver, as a parent, you can do this with your child. And then this leads into applying positive discipline and positive
So that's the
correcting.
second part, right?
That's the second phase, which is where the parent now is able to then, with that confidence, having mastered those skills, then being able to give the child commands,
Yeah.
and hopefully the child following through. And if they don't, we apply what's called logical consequences. And in this practice, we teach the parents of how to do things like timeout chair and timeout. And so very effective methods when it comes to correcting children.
I know, and people have a lot of different ideas and feelings about a timeout. One of the things that I learned over the years is that when they say that it doesn't work, It's because they haven't learned how to apply it correctly, correct?
Yes. I've had experiences with caregivers who say, "Oh, I've tried timeout and it doesn't work on my child." And I say, "Well, describe it to me, right? How are you doing it?" And it's typically, "Well, I put him in his room," which is already error number one because the room has all his toys, not really a consequence, right? And then they put them in there too long. You know, I've had parents say, "He fell asleep," or "She fell asleep," and it's like, well, how long were they in there? They should only be in there about 3 minutes, you know? And so, "Oh, I left them there for an hour." It's like, well, of course, it went into nap time, right? And so, yes, typically for caregivers that we've come into contact with that they've said that they've tried doing timeout on their own and it doesn't work, it's typically because the technique is not being applied properly. Yeah.
And I think one of the main things that we want and have to set some limits is that when the kid then has difficulty regulating the affect, if we continue, the child begins to calm down on his or her own.
Yes.
And that's such a great skill to develop because they'll learn that they can control these feelings and not afraid of having these feelings because they can master them.
Or expressing the feelings, right? So self-regulation is such a vital human thing, right? I mean, we carry this into adulthood. I mean, how many adults do you all know that you know they just blow up, right? And they I don't believe that. And that they just don't have those skills to cope and to self-regulate. And anytime I especially now that I do this work and I'm a little bit more observant and more vigilant of these things, if I meet adults like that, I always think like, as a child, this person was not given the opportunity to learn how to self-regulate. You know, it's such an important, really, it's a survival skill as people.
It's incredible skills that we need in our lives, and you know, to get along with others, to really master also those feelings when they're super strong. So then, helping these children eventually is going to lead to being healthier adults.
Absolutely, you know, one of our greatest responsibility as caregivers is to not only raise healthy, happy, responsible children, but hopefully that these will become happy, healthy, responsible adults.
Yeah, of course,
right?
and that's what this whole idea that. And we don't want parents to wait until the kid is 11 or 12 because we want them to start right away. And how important that is. And I was thinking about the second part of PCIT that you mentioned and the use of timeout. One of the things that I understand that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we want parents to get better at issuing commands and then getting compliance with the kids, correct?
Correct. And so the way we give commands is so important, right? So I used to think like, oh, I don't want to be mean to my child. So I would say, you know, sweetheart, it's time for bath. Do you want to go take a bath? And of course,
she's gonna say,
a smart kid, which all of our kids are very smart, they turn to you and they're like, no thanks. Again, the way we give commands has everything to do with the possible response we're going to get from our child. So one thing that we teach our parents through PCIT and through parenting sessions, through the curriculum that we have Triple P, is don't give commands in the form of a question. Also, don't give so many commands at once. You know, don't confuse the child. You know, allow the child to complete one task, praise them for it, and then you move on to the next task, right? Break it down for them.
And I understand that when you teach parents to praise, they have to do it in a specific way. It's not just like, good job.
Yeah, no, if we, that's what we call unlabeled praising, where you just say, oh, good job, high five, well done. But the child may not understand for what. So if we really want that behavior to be repeated, we need to praise them for it and explain to them for what. So we want to give what's called labeled praising, right? And so labeled praising would be like, good job drawing, you know, the house with the whole family. That's beautiful. You know, so they understand what it is that they did so well, and hopefully we'll see that behavior repeated.
And I was thinking also that when a kid finally is learning to calm down, we can also give label praises for that. I'm so glad you were so upset, but you calm down on your own, and now so they know what are some of the things that we're paying attention to that can lead to compliance, that can lead to
absolutely, so that they know that this is what they get, what kind of positive behavior they get positive regard for, right? So that they make that connection.
And if you notice in this conversation that we're having, how excited SJ is. We call it SJ. And it is because it is exciting program, and especially working with young children. Let's switch a little bit because I know that the program uses a few evidence-based practices. And it does a lot of different things too because it targets not only children, but it targets that we do directly. It targets also systems like Head Start and daycares and so forth. But let's talk a little bit about the other intervention that you guys use. I think that's more like to enhance, I guess, the relationship between caregivers and the kids. Can you talk about it? I think it's called CARE.
Yes, so we recently all, like our whole, most of our team got certified as facilitators to train others in CARE. And CARE stands for Child-Adult Relationship Enhancement. And so now our team members are able to go into the community and provide these trainings. So for example, we have already started. We just got trained very recently in June. And this July, we already started doing trainings. We did some with mental health professionals at the local university, as well as a local daycare center.
I participated in that one.
Yes, you got to be a part of that one. Yeah. And so, first of all, it is this training geared towards any adult working with children. So whether you're a parent, foster parent, adoptive parent, you are an educator with young children or adolescents, you are in the early childhood care industry. So any adult working with children who just wants to have a better way, of having that relationship, that connection, of course, responding to the children so that we can better manage certain challenging behaviors that children can present at times. And so we are really, really happy that we have this ability to provide this training to our community. And so we are really, really inviting all adults, again, that work with young children, especially young children and educators working with them. So for example, next week, we are doing a very special training for our local Webb County Head Start teachers. Oh, wow. So nice. Head Start is one of our biggest partners, right? Yeah. Working with
We're
Border
so
Project
proud of
Launch.
That partnership.
Yes, yeah. And so because they have these young minds that we want to be able to help. And so we are going to be having a training for them as well as other local child care centers. Yeah. So we're really, really excited that folks are really, really coming to us and wanting these trainings for their staff as professional development, but also for the children. The children that they serve are now going to have a better quality of care and attention.
Yeah, and I think that what I learned about care is that it's for any parent, the kids don't necessarily need to have some kind of behavior issue or a problem. It's not therapy because we're teaching parents.
It's just a skill set.
Yeah. So then they can learn that. It's pretty exciting. Yes, we were with Christy Leans, actually, was the program director, Gabby, and it was Sarita and myself who did that. And they were extremely gracious. They were eager to learn. They got really engaged in the training. So we want to give a shout out to Christy Lean and for allowing us to give you the training. And anyone out there wants to get the training on care, just let us know. It can be a daycare facility. It can be parents that just want to know. If you are to be an aspiring parent, I think these are incredible skills to learn. And we will happy accommodate you guys. So just have to, and we give you the contact information later on.
And it's free.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, everything is free. Everything we're talking about, all of our services are free.
And I guess we need to do another one because I missed some questions that are really important. I want them to know, maybe we can do a second part where we can talk about, let's hold a new conversation, different conversation about what the work that you do in terms of mental health consultation.
The infant and early childhood mental health consultation.
I think that they're telling us that we need to stop, but maybe we can continue doing that in a separate podcast. Because I think that just talking about young children is such an exciting.
Oh, we can be here all day. Yeah. How many episodes is this podcast going to be? Because we can go on.
Can we stay here 2-3 hours? No, they're telling us no. But thank you so much for joining us today. Again, San Juanita Guerra here with me. She's a licensed professional counselor, and she's a mental health consultant for the Launch Project. And I'm Luis Flores. I'm the executive vice president of SCAN. And then we're really happy that you joined us today. And then we'll have another one in Spanish with the program director, Gabriela Perez. So Take care, and thank you for joining us today.